Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know you, would you like to give a little bit of an overview of who you are?
Thank you, Renee. Great to be here. So I am Gaby. I'm a dietitian and a sports nutritionist, and I enable endurance athletes to overcome lack of energy and got upset so they can fuel their bodies with confidence and race to their full potential. This is something that I've been doing close to 10 years now. And I think there are three things that allow me to enjoy my job so much. The first one is that I love working with people and being part of that journey towards improving their performance, crossing that finish line with a big smile on their face is something that just brightens my day. The second one is that I'm fascinated by the key role nutrients play in our system and how is that through food we can make a significant difference in our health, our performance, and our life in general. And last but not least, I love food. I think food is delicious. Food is there to give us joy and also giving us energy and nutrients. So with the way I work with my athletes, I strive for people to feel the same way, to see how food is this powerful tool we have in front of us that is there to make our life better, not harder. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do as my profession, and I very heavily involved in endurance sport because I'm a triathlete as well. That's something I've been doing for close to over 15 years now, and yeah, definitely something that is a big part of my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people could probably agree with you when they say they also have a love for food. It's pretty hard not to.
Everybody usually smiles when I mention that part for sure.
Yeah. So how did you get involved and what sort of led you into becoming a nutritionist?
So because I essentially all my life I've been involved in a sport, I I really wanted to stay involved somehow as a like profession essentially. And that this is when I was like quite young. I was probably 12, 13 years old when I decided I wanted to keep being involved in the sport somehow, even like as an adult essentially, and like earning money from it somehow, but more about being part of it. Since a very young age, I noticed how sport was so good for me. My best friends, I met them through sport. I felt like I was more responsible at school because I knew that I have this extracurricular activity that I needed to go to. So it was easier for me to be organized. At the same time, I could experience what it felt like to stay active. So to me, it was super important to allow more people to feel the same way, to find in a sport something that they could really enjoy and then they can get a lot out of. So that was clear in my mind. I was like, I want to be part of this. When further down the track, when it came to deciding how I was going to stay involved, that's when it was a bit tricky to find something that grab my attention. So I didn't feel like wanting to be like a physical education teacher or a coach necessarily. And when I came across the nutrition and dietetics degree, and especially the one I did at the university where I did it in Mexico, I love that it was nutrition and wellness, and a heavy component of the program was about exercise and health and sports nutrition. So that was something I was not necessarily aware of. I didn't know that it was possible to be involved in a sport with nutrition. And ever since I understood more about it, I was like, oh, I just love this. That definitely felt like the way to go. And that's how, since the very beginning, I went into nutrition knowing that I was going to continue my path towards sports nutrition at the end.
Yeah, and I can hear the passion in your voice, and it's so nice to hear because, I'm a big fan of sport too, and I'm sure there's a large portion of the audience has a passion for sport. What is it about sport specifically for you that you fell in love with?
Ooh, I feel like it, and this is something that probably not at the beginning, but I something that I definitely feel like it's what it is keeping me in love with it right now, is that I see it sort of a celebration of my body. I believe our bodies are meant to be moved. We are like 3/4 muscle and bone, who like that are like our muscle system, which means that our body is designed to be in movement. And I love that thanks to sport, I'm able to move my body in ways that I enjoy it. I get to explore new places. I get to see beautiful sunrises and even sunsets. So it's just something that it's almost like a way of me living life. It allows me to be like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a really important thing because I think sometimes a lot of us, including myself, can get caught up in the fact that, sport, we have to sort of look a certain way and we don't always see it as a celebration of our body. So I love that you've said that.
Oh, thank you. That's something that took me a long time to understand. That definitely was not the way a few years ago, for sure.
Yeah. I would love to know your thoughts on what you think the relationship is between food and fueling our body and the mental side of sport.
So I see them very interlinked, and I see how, especially in my area where I work with endurance athletes most of the time, and normally the nutrition for endurance, it means that energy intake needs to increase. Like even like for anybody doing physical activity, we're using more energy, so therefore we need to consume more energy. And that's why I believe it's super important to have a good relationship with food. Because for someone who, let's say, is afraid of carbohydrates, calories, or particular ingredients, it's very hard for them to fuel their body with confidence, feeling that that food is going to give them energy, that that food is going to be good for them. And it's more attached, like, and instead they see it more attached to like, oh my God, this is not supposed to be good for me. Like the media is telling me that I shouldn't be eating carbohydrates and I'm probably damaging my system by doing this. So it's super important to have that confidence in understanding that that nutrient is there to be good for us. And when it comes to the mental part of it, it's huge. It's the way I see it. I feel like I see how physical activity or sport influences our mental health, but our mental health can also impact our ability to enjoy movement or to like be willing to. And then if we add nutrition as part of it, it's also the same. Like they are heavily interlinked. And the way I see it is that if we have all three working in synchrony is wonderful, but if one of them is not necessarily as smooth, then ideally we can try and use the other ones to sort of lift it up, but to a certain degree, depending on how serious the case is.
Yeah, and I'd love to know, I sort of probably should have asked this at the start, is um, what is it that you do as a nutritionist? And then part two of that, what is it that you help athletes with the most? Like, what would a consultation with you sort of look like?
Yeah. So in terms of as nutritionists, the way I see it is I work with 4 different areas. The first one is supporting the athlete in fueling their day to day. So in that case, is ensuring that the right amount of energy and all the essential nutrients are present in their diet. So that's essentially checking like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and all the things that they do daily. That's why I call it core as a principle. Then the next area is reviewing how they are fueling for their training. So whether they are going for a short 30-minute run or they are having a long session over the weekend or intervals, or depending on what sort of training session they have, is adjusting their nutrition to ensure that that session is going to be as efficient as possible. Each training session has a different objective, and with this we can use nutrition to enhance that objective or ensure that is fulfilled because the athlete had the substance to achieve it. So that is about their endurance and about their training. The next area is probably what also answers the second question about like which is like the part I help people the most. And usually that's when people come to me with more interest, which is I have a specific race and I need help for it. So I want to understand how I'm supposed to feel for this event. So that is a part where we work on a strategy that the athlete is going to follow as part of before the event, in terms of whether there's going to be a carbohydrate loading or whether we need to look at the diet in a particular way. Then we talk about what is going to what's going to happen along the event. So how they are going to be consuming the energy, hydrating as well, and then the part of the recovery. So usually when someone comes to me, that's their main interest, and then we start talking about the other areas as well. Then the fourth one, which is not necessarily something that we talk about in isolation, but is more as something that is wrapping everything together, and we make sure that is present, is that healthy relationship with food, is that the athlete feels comfortable with what they are eating, that they are eating what they love, they are loving what they are eating. And at the same time is that it's something that fits their lifestyle, is something that is easier for them to follow. It's something that is it's practical, it's simple. Usually the people I work with are people who are super busy. They are working full time. They have these crazy long training sessions. And then if on top of that, I tell them that now they need to spend 3 hours in the kitchen cooking, making these wonderful meals, is very, very hard. And it creates a burden for them and the family. So it's totally the opposite, is how can we make sure with the time they have available, they can get as much from their nutrition as they can.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to know, if I'm lacking nutrients, whatever that sort of may be, if I'm unsure, what are the things that I could potentially be feeling physically, mentally, and how will I know that that's what it is? Like, when should I sort of seek help? Like, I'm feeling fatigued. Could it be linked to nutrition, that sort of thing?
Yes, so it is a tricky thing to identify. I would say sometimes it's easier to notice it from essentially looking at your daily food intake, and from there seeing like, oh, it looks like there's a lot of calcium lacking in your diet, or it looks like there's not enough iron because you have, let's say, a vegan diet that doesn't look like you're adding foods that are from plant sources that could be higher. So that's one way of looking at it. Usually that means that the person already comes with a concern and they are interested in looking at their diet. The other way of viewing this is paying attention to the symptoms, in terms of, okay, looks like I'm more tired than usual. Looks like I'm struggling to wake up. If the person is active, they can also pay attention to how their training is feeling. Like if normally a particular effort, it feels comfortable, and suddenly it feels harder and harder, and the heart rate is off, it could be a sign that the athlete either do not have enough energy or there's a particular nutrient lacking. Same with hair loss. The nails get a little bit brittle. It depends on the nutrient, but all these things that we are noticing as like out of the ordinary, it's important to pay attention. And that's why the athlete knowing their body well, it becomes super important, because they can notice when something is like, oh, this feels off, and that's when it's important to pay attention to what is going on, either in their diet or health in general.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned earlier that sometimes people can be scared of carbs because of sort of what's portrayed in the media. And I think in a sporting environment, there's a lot of emphasis on how we look, whether that, aesthetically, if that's what our sport requires, or, just being self-conscious, being surrounded by really strong, powerful people. If someone comes in and it's something, body image is something they're worried about, or they are, let's say, as an example, scared of carbs, what are sort of the things that you would help to sort of get them on the right path in terms of making sure they're getting the right amount of nutrients and energy that they need?
It is usually a difficult conversation and something that it's not easily fixed, let's say. So it's first helping the athlete understand why they have that concern. Often they come to me saying, oh, I have this marathon coming up and I need to lose weight for it. And then it's asking like, why do you think you need to lose weight for it? It's like, well, I've been told that if I'm lighter, I'll be able to run faster. And then it's explaining, look, in order for you to get lighter, you also need to restrict your energy intake. And restricting your energy intake is actually going to impact on your performance in a negative way. So even though if like mathematically we put it there as like, okay, so if I try to move this object and is 5 kilos lighter, I'll be able to move it quicker. Yes. But the thing is that object is a human body that also requires the the fuel to operate. And if like essentially if we say it's a car and I don't put enough fuel in it, it doesn't matter how light the car is, it's not going to move very fast if the fuel is not present. So it's understanding that bit. It's like, all right, actually, if we focus on you losing weight rather than improving your performance, it can be detrimental. So normally that is something that helps a lot for the people to be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, let's try it. However, in cases where this is something that's been going on for longer term, sometimes it's consciously they understand it, but at the same time is this pressure of like needing to change the way they look in order to demonstrate that they're actually doing things well. That is something that it's beyond my scope, let's say. It's something that I definitely stay there supporting in ensuring that the athlete is doing their best to fuel adequately, but asking for support in terms of like getting counseling as well, or like advice with a psychologist in terms of understanding what's going on in there, like what is the thinking behind that need to change the way they look. Because often, even if it changes, they are still going to feel like they need to change it more. So it is more about their internal belief rather than actually the measurement, let's say. And I told this from a personal experience as well. I remember being there and I was like, oh, once I get to this body weight, I'll be happy. And I would work so hard to get there. And then as I was approaching, I would feel like, oh, wow, like I got there and suddenly I'm actually not happy. I feel very miserable. And now I look at me and I still don't like what I'm seeing. So now I understand that clearly it was not necessarily that either weight or that measurement or my genes or whatever. It was more about the perception I was having of myself. So that's when I asked, is like, do we need to change the image you are seeing in the mirror, or do we need to change the perception you have of it?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's super important. And I really like the analogy of the car and putting the fuel in the car. Like, yes, it's lighter, but you can't get as far with it because you just don't have the energy to do it. I really like that. It makes a lot, I mean, it clicked in my head, so hopefully it's clicked in other people's heads using it that way.
I hope so.
I have another question in terms of like social media. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that gets posted, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. I think TikTok's a really big platform at the moment. There's a lot of things about how to train and what to eat and, what I eat in a day sort of posts and things like that. And I think, we're a little bit into the new year now, but at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of stuff saying, get into the gym, get the body you want, get that summer body. There's a lot of things out there saying that we should be doing something to change how we look. What are your thoughts on how that plays a role in our food consumption?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. So definitely it is a pressure. I can see how things are shifting, or at least I making a conscious effort of, at least with my personal social media, of following accounts that do not necessarily align to that message. Like the moment I see someone promoting a diet or encouraging people to lose weight, it's like, oh, this is not for me. So I just like essentially unfollow pretty much. And that helps me because what I see more now is people who are actually saying the opposite. Is like, look, it's January, you're probably going to get a bunch of diet advertisements there, but you need to be aware that you don't need to lose weight. You are perfectly good the way you are right now, and focusing on other areas, such as to start with, okay, maybe yes, your diet will benefit from having more vegetables or including more fiber or having more variety. That's amazing. We can work on something like that. But I often encourage people to think of like why we're doing that, regardless of, let's say, eating the vegetables or adding the fiber. If the motivation behind it is shrinking the body, losing weight, it's very likely that new behavior is not going to be sustainable, because the moment we don't see that change, we're going to let it go. It's going to be like, oh, I was working so hard and I was eating all these vegetables and I didn't see it changing. So next thing. Whereas if we're like, oh, actually, like understanding clearly that the vegetables are giving me the vitamins and the minerals and all these things I need, I want to have them, and experiencing, I feel better. I have more energy, I have more clarity because I'm changing my diet in this way. That's amazing. So that's one aspect of how to deal with it. But yeah, definitely the pressure is there, especially, I mean, I still sometimes come across the post where it's like, oh, this person went through this huge transformation because they set their mind to it, and they were very disciplined, and look at this body transformation result. And it could be tempting to be like, oh, maybe I can try that as well. Maybe I didn't try hard enough, and that was a problem. Like, if this person clearly could do it, maybe I should try something different. So there's a lot of pressure there. So my advice is to encourage people to follow different accounts that share a different message, that share a message where we are seeing more and more messages about body acceptance, body respect, body embracement, where we are seeing more people sharing the message about saying, this is my body and I'm going to do as best as I can for my body, recognizing that this is the way I am. I don't need to change anything about it. All I have to do is make sure that my body is nourished, that there's movement in my life, that I'm doing the things that make me feel good, regardless of the way I feel. And one way of like ensuring I feel good is wearing clothes that are comfortable. I don't need to fit in these super tight jeans anymore. That's not comfortable for me. So looking at those accounts, it makes a huge difference in how we start receiving information daily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a bit of a different question for you. Obviously, there's a lot of people that experience a period and our hormones change and those sort of things. What impact do you think that has on our nutrition? Because I know my cravings go through the roof when it's that time for me. What things should we be listening to those cravings? For me, it's a lot of chocolate and sugar and high fats and high salt. Like, they're really not so good things, I would say, for us. Should we listen to those cravings, or what sort of things should our diet change? What's your advice around that?
I'm of the idea that if we have a craving, it's important to just like definitely listen to it and understand what's going on. So at that moment, I would say, if you're craving the chocolate, just eat it. Because if you are like, oh, because I've seen those posts going around as well, like, if you're craving chocolate, then you're potentially craving magnesium, so have some almonds instead. And you have the almonds, and then you eat the almonds. It's like, I still want the chocolate. So just to eat the chocolate. But that's at the moment. At that moment, I'll be like, definitely, that's what your body is asking for, so go for it. And in a way that is being conscious about it, in terms of, okay, my body's asking for chocolate, I'm going to eat chocolate. If we eat that chocolate with fear or with that restriction mindset, that's when it's super likely that you'll end up eating the whole chocolate bar, and you're going to be like so guilty and feeling disgusted and all these things, like, oh, why did I do this? And because we were in that mindset of, I better eat this whole thing right now because tomorrow I'm going to be good, and we start again. Whereas if you're like, okay, I want chocolate, I'm going to eat this square of chocolate. Maybe that didn't feel like enough, another one. I was like, oh, perfect, I'm satisfied because I'm listening to my body. So that's at the moment. Now, in terms of cravings in general, I often see them as a sign of energy lacking. So that is when it's important to also pay attention of like, okay, this is unusual. Looks like every day I'm starting to have cravings and are normally sweet or are normally something that is a bit fatty. That's the body asking for more energy. So that means that we need to look at the diet as a whole and see what is missing during the day. Often, for example, when I work with a lot of people and they report those cravings in the evening, what we do is check what's going on in their morning. And what we see is that usually are people who are really busy, just walk out of the house with a glass of milk and a piece of toast, and then they don't eat till 3 p.m. and it's just like potentially just grabbing a sandwich and that's it. So there's a lot of energy lacking in the morning. And it's natural that by the time they get home, they are no longer distracted with work or thinking of work. Their fridge is right there in front of them. It's natural that it's going to be like, I'm starving, and it's eating a lot. But it's because during the day, that energy was missing. So that's when it's like, okay, let's look at this and how can we make sure that the body is well nourished. So in the case of the period, it's similar. We know that because a lot of females report that it's like, I usually experience either more cravings or I'm hungrier. So that means that the body is using more energy. That means that the body is needing more energy. So it's okay, how can I make sure that my body is well nourished during the day? So perhaps I can make sure that I introduce another piece of fruit during my breakfast, or maybe I have increased my portion of lunch at lunchtime, like have a little bit of extra pasta or have a bigger serve. And that's something that is like, okay, now that my body is feeling satisfied. So it is acknowledging that we are not supposed to be eating always the same quantity all year round or the whole month or every single day. Our activity changes, our needs change, and it's okay to acknowledge that and to address it, adjusting your nutrition.
Yeah, and I think, at Christmas time too, like obviously there's a lot more food going around and it's a joyous time. And I think in Australia, particularly, we celebrate with food quite a lot, particularly at Christmas. And, there's a lot of guilt that sort of can be felt around that time. And as you said, different times of the year require different amounts of food. So yeah, at Christmas time, if we eat more, it's okay, and try not to feel guilty about it. And I think too,
Oh,
do you think,
definitely. I mean, like as yeah,
no, sorry,
go for
continue.
it. Sorry. Sorry, it's just I was going to say that definitely Christmas is such a time that it's a time of celebration for most of us. I'm from Mexico. Like food it's there as like there is no way you can have a celebration without food. It's something that is just sacrilege, I would say. And the thing is that something that I talk a lot about when these holidays approach is how important it is to recognize that food is part of that culture. Food is part of that enjoyment. Food is part of that season, but it's not the only thing. So it is not about sitting at the Christmas table just the stress because there's this massive pile of bread and pasta and ham and all this food that you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work so hard in January with my diet, or like still stressing. It's about the person that is sitting across that table that you haven't seen in months and now you're catching up with. It's about the hands that prepare that food and spend the whole day making sure that you are going to enjoy it. It's about your kids sitting next to you that are loving this time because the whole family is together and they're seeing their cousins. It's so much more beyond what is in front of you, and we miss so much by putting so much attention and energy to that meal in front of us in a negative way, when there are so many other things that we're missing out just by stressing about it. And then, yes, we get to January and it's like, okay, I ate so much because that was that restriction mindset. It's like, it doesn't matter, it's December, I'm just going to eat as much as I want. And usually because it's a restriction mindset, we tend to eat beyond past fullness quite frequently. And that's when we get to January. And that's all right, now I need to get rid of all these kilos, and that's when we go, well, and now to the restriction is I'm going to do this crazy diet, or I'm going to start exercising 3 times a day, or like things that patterns, food behaviors and activities that are not necessarily sustainable. Like it's very hard to keep going for the rest of the year. So it's this endless cycle of sort of restriction and then feeling guilty and going back to the old habits. So it's very hard to break that cycle. Whereas if we are doing things in a mindful way, it's easier to be, I did eat more during December because there was definitely more parties. There were different, more energy dense meals. But then what happens in January is like, I just go back to my normal routine. I don't need to do anything else. Like I just need to go back to my normal things. And the body is going to adjust and going to like shift towards is better for you. Sometimes it's not the 10 kilos we've been dragging for since 10 years ago, thinking that one day we're going to be 10 kilos lighter, and every single year we keep promising whatever your natural body weight is and like shift towards that, because we are not putting that pressure on the body. We're just allowing our body to keep fulfilling their functions, and we're there to make sure the nourishment is going on and the physical activity and all the other things that help us to stay healthy are present.
Yeah, definitely. And switching to a little bit more of a sports mindset, if you were, seeing someone that was either doing, like an AFL match that goes for 2 hours, but there is sort of a decent break in between where they can, sort of eat or drink something, compared to like a marathon where it's sort of going for a really long time, or a marathon swim where it's sort of on that 2 hour mark as well without that break. Would you give similar prescription of food to eat beforehand or sort of the weeks leading in, given that, there is a little bit like, yes, the duration is sort of the same, but there is a little bit more time to sort of eat in between?
Yeah, so definitely the nutrition changes a lot in between them. And there are different things to understand. For example, in an AFL match, it's similar duration to a marathon, but the intensity is way higher. The athlete is sprinting a lot. So during that break, we want to make sure, and this is me without lots of experience in AFL, this is about my nutrition knowledge, that during the break, what we'll expect is the athlete eating an energy bar or having some sports drink or something that is going to give them quick energy. Because at the same time, since they have that break, but then they need to go back to the field and keep sprinting and having this high energy, we can't be expecting the athlete to, let's say, eat this sandwich or something that is quite harder to process, because very soon they are going to be very active again, and it's tricky for the body to deal with that high intensity activity while processing such food. But yeah, definitely I will be expecting that in that break they are going to be having either something that is very high in energy and easy to absorb, such as gummies, energy gels, sports drinks, or something of the like. Often we can also see them how they like handle them bottles. Sometimes it could be water, sometimes it could be a sports drink that has the sugar. So in the terms of how we are, the fueling for the activity in that match is very different to the marathon. And then in the marathon, what we will see is that the intensity is lower, but the athlete is still using a lot of energy. So what we want to do is ensure that there's a regular supply of energy. So that's similar to the AFL in terms of the type of things that the athlete is consuming, sports drinks, energy gels. But in this case, it's not like the marathon, you stop halfway there and then you eat all these things and then you keep going. It's more as you are going, you keep eating this or consuming it, that's it, because not everything is chewable. So it will be the energy gel, some sports chew, or the sports drink, or a combination of them. That is what will happen during the activity. You also mentioned before a marathon, normally we see a carbohydrate loading, which means that the person has been consuming carbohydrates for at least 2 days in a controlled manner. It's not just about like, oh, just eat carbs. We do a whole menu in terms of helping the athlete find the meals that are going to give them the most energy, but are also unlikely to upset their stomach, which is something super important. In the case of AFL, I imagine the athletes go through high energy intake because they use a lot of energy as part of their training. But given that this is something that the next weekend they'll have to do again, and the following weekend again, it's unlikely that they will be following a carb loading protocol per se. It's more about ensuring that they are well fueled. Yes, carbohydrates are part of it, but not necessarily at the same degree as a marathon runner will be consuming them.
Yeah, definitely. And, another sort of scenario for you, you've got someone that's come in and like, I've got a 2 hour training session that's fairly aerobic. What sort of thing should I be snacking on before I go? And how long before the training session should I be eating these snacks?
Yeah, so normally the suggestion is for an aerobic session beforehand, we want to have carbohydrate that is also easy to digest. Ideally, at least 1 hour before the activity. It depends too much on who we're dealing with. I know people who feel comfortable half an hour before they start doing the activity, they feel comfortable eating. But for most people, 1 to 2 hours before the activity is something that is more manageable. And especially depending on how much they are intending to eat. For a 2-hour activity, I would be suggesting something along the lines of like potentially 1 to 2 grams of carbohydrate per their kilo of body weight, which is, let's say, a very decent amount. Most people, when it's a training session, I would say probably the 1 gram per kilo is sufficient and still a lot. So for example, for someone like me, that looks like 2 pieces of toast, 1 banana, a tablespoon of jam. And I think that will be it for me to be like, okay, this is 1 gram per kilo. And that's something I can have 1 hour before my 2-hour activity. Now, then during the activity, even though it's fairly aerobic, probably the body is not necessarily needing as much carbohydrate compared to something in higher intensity, such as, let's say, is a half marathon race, where it's likely the person still going to take 2 hours, let's say, but the intensity is going to be higher. So in a 2-hour aerobic one, we still include the carbohydrate, and I still suggest having potentially a sports drink. And the reason I mention the sports drink so frequently is because they are easy to consume. They are high in carbohydrate. They are something that is also supporting with hydration, giving us electrolyte. It's just very convenient to have it. So I would say, like, why not? And it will be a sports drink and potentially an energy gel or some gummies or something else along the way, just to keep giving some energy to the person. And something that is going to be very important is after that run, how the session, well, this is me assuming it was a run, but like after the aerobic 2-hour activity, how is the person going to feel afterwards? So that is going to be important to include carbohydrate and protein, essentially, to carbohydrate replenish an energy, and protein to repair the muscle. And obviously rehydrating, because even if it was in a cool environment, the athlete likely still lost some fluids as part of it.
I guess further on that, again, if they've just finished the day of school or they've just finished the day of work, they're in a rush, they're in the car on the go, and they're going straight to their training session, what are some quick snacks that they can sort of grab? Because, sometimes they can't always have, I mean, you can change it to a sandwich or something like that, but what are the sort of really quick on-the-go snacks that we can have?
Some of my favorites are a simple banana. It depends too much on what's going to be the activity after the work. But assuming it's 1 hour thing, let's say, a big banana, that's good. Having a muesli bar, that's something good. Then we can move on to things that are a little bit, let's say, more elaborate, but just you can leave there beforehand, such as having a piece of bread with some jam spread on it. Or you can have rice cakes. Those are also easy to just like put things on top. Crumpets are similar. Or simply saying, like, you know what, I didn't have a chance to do anything, just grabbing 2 pieces of bread and that's it. So those are easy options. And that, at least in the case of the fruit and the muesli bar, even if you didn't get a chance to stop home or anywhere else, at least there could be a servo along the way where you can just grab that as you go.
Yeah, I think they're really good options. Now, I'd like to do 3 sort of questions to finish with. Oh, actually, I'll make it 4. First
Okay.
is, do you have an embarrassing sports story?
Ooh, embarrassing sports story. Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. I think it's embarrassing in the way that, well, I don't consider it embarrassing, but it's embarrassing when I think of it. I did a 70.3 and a half Ironman in Los Cabos, Mexico. And the whole time I was very well aware of, like, the whole time of me preparing for this event, I was aware that the bike course was going to be hilly. So I trained hill sessions a lot, and I actually did well on the bike ride. Something I didn't check though was how hot the race was going to be. So coming from Australia, where I live now, the timing was essentially as we were coming out of autumn, so the weather wasn't necessarily hot here, and then going straight to Los Cabos where it was super hot, I suffer a lot. And the reason I believe it's embarrassing is that that's something I talk a lot about. Is I tell people how important it is to research the race conditions and be prepared for them, and I didn't do it. And it was one of the hardest races I've ever done. I remember feeling it was so, especially the run. And normally, at least recently, the run has been my strong leg. And I was going on the bike. I was like, this is amazing. I'm doing so well. I can't wait to start running so I can like even smash this more. So I started running. I was like, oh, this is so hard. I remember we were sitting at the briefing the day before, and the organizers were saying how they had aid station every kilometer. And I was like, oh, that feels a bit over the top. Like, feels like very frequently for a race. Well, once I was on the race, I wish they had been every 500 meters or like every step of the way, because it was so hot, like, getting ice, water. Like some people had some sponges that they felt like lifesavers. They were so cold and you could put them on your neck. That was so helpful. But yeah, I remember crossing that finish line and bursting into tears because it felt so, so, so hard. So I think of the experience and I think of it as a really good lesson. But at the same time, I'm even embarrassed that I didn't follow my own advice for it.
Yeah. The next question I have for you is, what is something that you're most proud of about yourself?
When I moved to Australia, that was 7 years ago, and my idea was to come here, do a master's degree, go back home. And when I saw that because of personal reasons that didn't happen, something that I'm very happy with, I shifted to essentially, well, adjusting to the life here, essentially, to knowing that I was going to be here for a longer time. So I started working at the Department of Health, a job I really enjoy, but it was not necessarily aligned to a sports nutrition or nutrition at all. So even though it was something that, okay, this is something I can keep doing, it didn't fulfill me. So 2020, I was, let's say, encouraged to try again and do my sports nutrition practice here. I didn't have that many connections as I did in Mexico, or like people who knew me essentially as well as they did there. So it felt very intimidating to essentially step in and like try and do this again, essentially from scratch. And I think that I would say that leap of faith, or like that step forward, is one of the things that I'm the most proud of. I'm so proud I did it. And now looking back, it's just like, I'm so glad I did. It's just something, ever since I came back to it, this is where I'm meant to be. I love this so much and it makes me so happy. And every day is a joy. And I am so proud of myself for taking that step, knowing that, yeah, it was going to be hard. And it's still hard getting things on your own. But yeah, something so rewarding that, yeah, makes me so proud.
Yeah, that's so nice to hear. What is your favorite quote and or the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Mm. I love James Clear. He has a quote or like something in his book about atomic habits. And it's something that definitely is always in my mind, which is like, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And it's just something that resonates so well with me. And it's something that I try to like actually have it on my desk and not here, but like I just to have it there as like as a reminder of like, you are doing this for a reason, make sure it's a good one. So I just love that one.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, I've been doing this podcast for a little while now, and I've never heard someone come up with the same quote or piece of advice yet. So it's so good to have such a good range of different things that people have sort of that resonate with them. So that's awesome.
Oh, nice, excellent.
The last question I have for you is, any tips or advice for those that are listening?
All right, so I think broadly, I would say the first one is do not compare yourself to others, regardless of like wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And I think that's like, even right now, me saying this, it's easier said than done. When it comes to sport, I see how a lot of people get to a race and they just look around the field and see like, oh my God, that person looks like they've been here for so many years, and look, they look so pro, and look at me with my super, like, let's say this is the internal talk, right? Like my crappy Kmart bike, and look at this person with these shiny things. Because hang on, they've been here for a long time. You don't know when they started. You don't know the position they're in. This is your circumstances, and this is you trying your best. So acknowledging that this is for you, and regardless of what's going on around, makes a big difference. And that's how it's easier to feel proud of what you're doing. So I would say that's something very important. And in every aspect, I feel like now that I'm going with my business, I've had the same experiences. I'm starting, and it's very easy to get caught up on like, oh my God, look how many Instagram followers this person has, or they are talking about how they are having many months of this income, and I'm barely having like a third of that. So it's like starting at, once again, the comparison. It's like, hang on, no, this is me. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying my best, and I know that I'll get to the point where I feel comfortable, regardless of what the others are doing. There's a lot for everybody out there. That's the first one. The second one is treating the body with respect and self-care. Appreciation makes a big difference in every action we do, in terms of how we approach our physical activity, how we approach our nourishment, how we approach everything. Essentially, it's not about, I know often we talk about self-love, but I believe that respect, it's even more important. You don't have to necessarily love what your body right now, but respecting it, it's crucial. And respecting it in the way that you believe works for you is not, it doesn't look the same for everybody, and that's also important to understand. And I think the third one is acknowledging that food is meant to be enjoyable, that we are allowed to enjoy food. Often we believe that because something tastes delicious, it's something that is bad for us. And how can it be bad if it's something that we're happy about? So I remember now that I was heading to Mexico, there's this cafe I follow on Instagram, and they posted this the range of meals that they were having for that week, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to be there. And because they know I'm a dietitian, the response was like, oh, we have healthy food as well. And I was like, look, to me, anything that has been prepared with love and that is embracing a culture, and like it's something that is meant to be enjoyable, it's something that I still consider healthy. So I believe that approaching food with that mindset of like, this is good for me in many aspects, makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, I think that that's all really great advice, and definitely things that I would love to take on board. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. It's been really great chatting.
Oh, thank you, Renee. I've had a great time. Thanks for the invite.